He's called the king of the New World cats, stalking his prey through the rainforest and along the riverbanks. Because of the coloration of his coat, he's difficult to find. Do you know who he is? Well, if you said jaguar, you're right. The Latins call him El Tigre, the most dangerous predator of Central and South America. But this fierce carnivore has another side, and you'll get to see that and some of the other animals with whom he shares his jungle domain. When I come back, we'll meet a real live jaguar and have some fun playing Animal Quiz.
In the tropical rainforests of South and Central America, relatively few creatures of the animal world can be seen during the daylight hours. Almost all jungle animals are nocturnal. They prefer to hunt and to prowl in the nighttime shadows. Only the trained eye and lens can focus on them in the daylight. Even birds are rarely seen in the thick green corridors of the forest. The same jungle that shelters the animal world has surrounded and conquered some of the great civilizations of the New World. The Mayans, the Toltecs, the Aztecs. They all constructed marvelous temples and cities. Each one eventually succumbed to what naturalist William Beebe calls the silent, terrible warfare of the plant world. When Francisco Coronado and other Spanish expeditions first came to the New World, they singled out one animal among all the rest. The ancient Mexicans considered him to be sacred. They called him El Tigre. Largest of all the American cats, he measures from 6 to 8 feet in length and weighs up to 250 pounds. At first, Coronado mistook him for a leopard. Actually, the yellow, tight-fitting coat of the American jaguar has fewer and larger rose-shaped black spots than the leopard of Africa and Asia. He also has a heavier chest and legs and a much larger head. What kind of existence does the jaguar enjoy in the forest today? Let's penetrate a bit further into the interior and see for ourselves how the king of the jungle reacts in his own natural habitat. The capybara, a giant rodent, is a favorite target of the jaguar. The jaguar, unlike most cats, is very much at home in the water. But so is the evasive capybara. Largest of all the South American rodents, he grows up to 3 feet or more. The capybara weighs over 100 pounds, and the Indians consider him to be a delicious dinner. So does the jaguar, when and if he can catch one. Just when it appears that the capybara has managed to escape, a jaguar cub discovers his hiding place. He thinks he's found a new playmate, but the capybara knows that wherever the cub is, the female jaguar cannot be far behind. By freezing up or playing dead and being completely uncooperative, the capybara hopes he'll go away. Even when the cub resorts to some hair pulling, the capybara tries to retain his composure. But it doesn't last very long. When the female reappears, another chase ensues. Only this time, the jaguar does not seem quite so intent. She normally gets all the food she wants at night. Right now, she's more worried about taking care of her wandering cubs. Instead of lunchtime, it's playtime for the jaguar family. Right down by the family pool. As with most cat families, it's the female jaguar who rears her young, while father jaguar is roaming the countryside. It's the female who must teach them how to use their claws and teeth to protect themselves. The learning process obviously has its lighter moments. This is how the female and her cubs spend most of their daylight hours. It's a joyful, rewarding time in their lives, with parent and offspring finding comfort and strength in each other's company. The American jaguar has been known to roam from the plains of Patagonia to the hills of Texas. Unlike most cats, he's equally at home on dry land or along one of the many river banks in South and Central America. The jaguar's vigilance never ceases. For food or for fun, he'll chase anything in sight. This includes a rather small and agile animal called a tyra. The tyra is actually a member of the weasel family. She's only about 2 feet long, not counting her furry tail, and she has a reputation for being a ferocious carnivore. Surprisingly enough, when captured, the tyra makes a fine domesticated pet, but that's obviously not what the jaguar has in mind right now. The jaguar can go out on a limb just so far, but then because of his size, he can go no farther. Oh, well, there's always easier and sometimes more desirable items on the jungle menu. How about an armadillo? He escapes from his enemies by digging a hole and hiding underneath his thick armor plate. Not so fortunate is the hoofed tapir. Normally shy and gentle, he's the last living relative of the horse and rhino. Full grown, he's the largest of all South American animals. Night or day, the ants of the jungle are always busy. They're either carrying the remains of a victim or else trying to avoid being gobbled up by their own nemesis, the anteater. This is one of the few animals who does most of his work during the daylight hours. This being the case, it's almost inevitable that sooner or later our wandering cubs will come face to face with a prowling anteater. Every day, of course, is full of wonderful adventures and surprises for this intrepid twosome. But meeting a genuine anteater, a fellow who can consume as many as 30,000 ants in a single day, well, that's really something extra special. With his beak-like nose, long tail, bowed legs, and furry back, the anteater is certainly not a very difficult fellow to identify or pursue. Another animal frequently seen in trees is the kinkajou. Although he resembles a monkey and is equipped with a prehensile tail, he's actually a member of the raccoon family. Whenever he makes his way down to the riverbank, he too must keep a wary eye on the big cat. Because he is number one among the jungle predators, he has no natural enemies. So he kills to eat and survive, not for the mere pleasure of it. We can judge that by the way he's treating this turtle. The king might be a little curious, even annoyed, but not angry. There are times when even the jaguar will meet his match, especially if it happens to be a giant boa constrictor. It usually occurs when one of the giant snakes slips from a limb of a tree into the river. Fortunately for both sides, the conflict ends in a draw. The next time this boa climbs a tree, he'll be sure to hang on more tightly. After all, it's not every day that one meets the king of the jungle, face to face, and lives to tell about it. In the jungle of South and Central America, the jaguar is king of all he surveys. Few animals in the wilderness will dispute that fact. But even a king does not have complete control over all his subjects. The Coatimundi, for example, is considered one of the clowns of the forest. But he doesn't think it's very funny to have a growling jaguar on his tail. The one advantage the Coatimundi does have, he exploits to the fullest. He can climb up and down any kind of tree trunk as fast as any animal alive. The jaguar, on the other hand, is at a disadvantage because of his size. The Coatimundi, a cousin of the raccoon, is an extremely intelligent animal. He's gifted with superior eyes and a sensitive nose that can smell trouble a mile away. While the jaguar may not enjoy losing the race, he's not particularly worried about getting enough food to eat. Long ago, it was ordained by nature for the jaguar to be the biggest and most capable of all predators in this region. The forest for centuries has provided the jaguar, as well as his offspring, with all the needs they've ever wanted. Their biggest enemy is no longer the jungle or other animals, or even drought or disease. Their biggest enemy is man. Because they live in such remote areas, there are no exact census figures available on American jaguars. But we do know that at one time they were plentiful even in North America. The last jaguar seen and killed in California occurred near Palm Springs in 1860, over a century ago. Because of their beautiful and unique skins, jaguars have become a very valuable animal on the commercial market. The jaguar and all of his family will soon be added to the growing list of endangered species. Zoologists and other leading authorities on the animal world must now travel further and further into the jungle in order to see or study these magnificent cats. That may not seem important or frighten many of us. After all, this animal family is far removed from our everyday lives. But if the jungle jaguar is in jeopardy in his own domain, how much further behind will Homo sapiens be?
Looks comfortable, doesn't he? Seeing him in his natural habitat was a rare treat. Isn't it amazing that this animal, with a sinister reputation of night prowler and vicious killer, is in reality so many things? Curious, playful, mischievous, brave, and sometimes even a bit timid. But don't let this fella fool you. He's a wild animal and one to be respected. You know, once I was traveling through the Amazon jungle and got separated from my guide. I stepped into a clearing, and on the other side, not 50 feet, was the biggest jaguar just like this one I've ever seen. I was really worried because I knew his reputation. But then I also remembered that jaguars usually won't attack men unless they're provoked. So I stayed absolutely still. We just looked at each other for what seemed like hours. Actually, it was only a minute or so. Then he just turned and ambled back into the jungle. I got out of my breath. I didn't even know I was holding it. But you can bet on one thing. That was an experience I'll never forget. Jaguars do other things besides scare people in the jungle. Do you know that they are accomplished fishermen? Well, I didn't either. But they can tap their tails on the water and mimic the sound of fruit falling. There's a kind of fish that really likes this fruit. And when the fish come up to investigate, the jaguar catches them with his paws. The Indians even learned how to catch these fish by watching the jaguars do it. Now let's go back to the jungle for a moment and see how good an expert you are on the jaguar and his domain. Just for fun, see if you can answer these questions in Animal Quiz. As the largest of American cats, the jaguar has a special name given to him by the ancient Mexicans. What is he called? A, El Tigre, B, El Cid, or C, El Gato? If you answered A, El Tigre, you're correct. The jaguar was first reported to the outside world by Amerigo Vespucci over 400 years ago. That was very good. Now put on your thinking cap and try this one. Long before he was spotted by European explorers, the jaguar was a skilled hunter. One of his favorite targets is the largest of South America's rodents. What is this rodent called? A tyra, B, a tapir, or C, a capybara? If you answered the capybara, good for you. That was a tough question. The capybara is a smart little guy to play dead like that. It's a technique that helps him survive in the Amazon jungle. But another of the jaguar's potential targets has a different way of coping with the threat. How does the armadillo escape? Well, A, hiding his head under a bush, B, digging a hole and hiding underneath his armor, C, holding his breath and pretending he's not there? Well, of course, the answer is B. He hides under his armor plate. Boy, there's some days I wish I had armor plate to hide under. How you doing so far? Well, keep going. We need more jungle experts. Here's another question. Most of the jungle inhabitants prefer to hunt and prowl at night, but there are exceptions. One of them is the long-snouted creature who dines on ants. What is it called? A, anteater, B, boa constrictor, or C, platypus? You're absolutely right if you said the anteater. And a busy little creature he is, consuming as many as 30,000 ants a day. I don't know, I might have trouble just counting to 30,000 in a day. Well, as you've seen, many of the animals of the jungle must keep a wary eye out for the jaguar, and the kinkajou is no exception. Although he resembles a monkey, he's actually related to another familiar animal. What family is the kinkajou related to? A, beaver family, B, dog family, or C, raccoon family? Well, you're right if you said the raccoon family. Are you having a good time playing Animal Quiz? If you've answered most of the questions correctly, you're well on your way to becoming a jungle expert. Now see if you can answer this last question. Even though he's king of the jungle, the jaguar doesn't always win every confrontation. What creature is frequently a match for the jaguar? Is it A, boa constrictor, B, king snake, or C, python? The answer is A, boa constrictor. Even the mighty jaguar can't overcome him. I hope you had a good time playing Animal Quiz. We need more experts on the animal world so that creatures like this magnificent jaguar can continue to roam their domain in freedom. Thank you for sharing the jaguar's world with us, and remember, be kind to animals. It's good for everybody. Alaska. Beautiful, isn't it? Alaska is a very special place, for it contains the largest concentration of wildlife in North America. It's a refuge and a last stronghold of many animals that once flourished southward over the continent. Among the most enduring residents of this sprawling wilderness is the Alaskan brown bear. The Alaskan brown bear is the largest land carnivore on Earth and is the largest of all bears living today. Weighing as much as 1,400 pounds and standing over 9 feet tall, this powerful creature makes a mighty impression when confronted in the wild. Brown bears have etched out an ideal existence for themselves in their northern paradise. So far, they've led a charmed life, removed from the encroachment of man. But how long can it last? During our program, we'll explore the world of the Alaskan brown bear, their past, present, and future. Stay with us, because later in our program, we'll meet another member of the bear family, and we'll also play another round of Animal Quiz.
Alaska, icy, windswept, remote and chill. The tundra, where the ground is frozen down to bedrock. Jagged peaks and mountains locked in the grip of tremendous glaciers. Miles and miles of rugged coastline. Time and again, the sea level dropped here and land bridges emerged, linking this land with Asia. Many of the best-known American mammals of today migrated across them and found a place for themselves on this vast continent. Some adapted to the cold wilderness of the north and still remain here, like the Arctic fox, prized for its beautiful soft fur, and the polar bears. Just as they have for thousands of years, the Alaska fur seals come through the pounding surf each spring to bear their young on the misty shores of the Pribilof Islands. In the frigid waters of Amchitka's rocky coasts, sea otters abound. The icy currents, barren coves, and thick kelp beds provide a perfect home for these unique and playful animals. Alaska is virtually the last refuge of the bald eagle, national bird of the United States. In the lakes and bogs of Alaska's virgin forests, moose browse on water plants. These dark giants seem to typify the spirit of this wilderness. Ptarmigan nest in the tundra and remain through the winter, when most birds have deserted the cold regions of the north. Great numbers of deer range over the rugged countryside, part of Alaska's unbelievable abundance of wildlife. While elsewhere over the American landscape, the primeval beauty of living things was gradually erased by man, here much remains. The caribou still plod on their yearly migrations, traveling hundreds of miles north in spring and south in fall, seeking lichen and moss on the tundra. In the barren mountains, Dall sheep inhabit the rocky slopes. All summer, they fatten for the coming winter, when they'll have to poke through frozen ice crusts for food. Born white, their coats will serve as camouflage when the mountainsides are covered with snow. But this great wilderness at the northern roof of our continent is not only home to exotic Arctic animals. Many more common animals have adapted themselves to Alaska's severe cold periods, like the ground squirrel and the porcupine. In winter, when frost covers the ground, the porcupine stays near a favored clump of trees and feeds on them. His strong, chisel-like teeth chip away the outer bark, and he feeds on the succulent inner layers. Protected from most other animals by his prickly quills, he spends the warm months wandering slowly over large areas looking for plant food. Up here, the marmots hibernate in a deep sleep from September to May, but there's likely to be plenty of action when they wake up. And spring also brings out the mightiest mammal of North America, the Alaska brown bear. In the wild, open spaces of our northern frontier, the brown bears are today as abundant as they were in earlier ages. They range over practically the whole of Alaska and its islands. By July, they start heading for the rivers. They've spent the spring feeding on grass and the shoots of early plants, supplemented occasionally by prey animals or carrion. Now it's time for their annual summer picnic, and they shuffle down the bear trails they've used for centuries to converge on the rivers and pools where the salmon are migrating upstream to spawn. These enormous animals weigh only 8 to 10 ounces when they are born. Their birth and early life is one of nature's most remarkable phenomena. Gestation lasts approximately 7 months, but there is almost no embryonic growth during the first half of pregnancy. The young are born in a winter den during late January or February. The eyes of the tiny animals are closed, they have very little hair. There are 2 cubs in a normal litter, occasionally 3 or even 4. The cubs stay with their mother until they're approximately 17 to 19 months old. By then, they're about their mother's size. One reason why brown bears grow so large is probably the protein-rich diet available to them, the fish to which they're now hungrily looking forward. There it is, bear paradise, the McNeil River, glittering with silvery salmon. There is a pecking order at the rivers, and bears will quarrel over choice fishing sites. But usually a truce is in force, with the smaller animals giving way to the larger, dominant ones. Once a bear reaches the water, there's no hesitation. Generally, he just dives in and hopes the fishing will be good. The browns seem to differ on the best way to fish. Some bears are quite impulsive, some cautious, some more successful than others. Cubs learn the art of angling by watching mother, observing and imitating until they get the hang of it. The hungry bears here aren't the only ones who appreciate the fish. Seagulls wait to scavenge the leftovers. Even the mighty bald eagle doesn't disdain the scraps of a feast like this. Sometimes a playful row is interrupted by more interesting proceedings. The angling and feasting are temporarily halted as the bears watch what must be a new fishing technique. No catch, but it's worth another try. cubs decide his method will never work. But around here, everybody does his own thing. Obviously, the favorite pastime in these parts is munching on salmon, if you can just get your paws on some. The wild brown bear population of Alaska is by far the greatest in the world. Here in the last extensive sweep of unspoiled land that remains in our nation, they live in numbers and conditions remarkably like those of primeval times. But this cannot be expected to last. As human populations and endeavors expand, the bears will be subjected to ever greater stresses. To survive, the bears must be protected. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game knows that proper management of the land and wildlife is the key to survival for the bears. But a great deal is yet to be learned about the animal's life history to ensure its successful management. So a program is presently in progress designed to protect the animals and their habitat. This biologist is part of that program. He prepares a drug for use in a dart gun, with which he hopes to tranquilize a bear so it can be tagged and measured. The tranquilizer must be mixed on the spot. Care is taken to stay downwind of the animals in these operations, since their sense of smell is keen. Their eyesight is not so good, and the man's presence has not been detected. Caution is essential in dealing with bears, since their brute strength is enormous. They can uproot trees and roll huge logs over effortlessly. Unprovoked attacks on man are exceedingly rare. Provoked attacks occur largely from animals wounded or harassed by hunters. But an animal who feels threatened, especially a sow protecting a cub, can mean sudden death to an unprotected man. It's a hit. Tagging is the only method by which a specific animal can be identified and later observed. The actual number of bears in each area is one thing the Alaska Department of Fish and Game is trying to establish. Considerable effort has been spent to take a census by aerial surveying, but analysis revealed marked inconsistencies in the method. They record some basic data such as time, place, and date, and trim that heavy coat of fur from the animal's ear so they can begin the tagging process. The tags carry the bear's identification number. The number is also tattooed inside the animal's lip. These great teeth measure over an inch long. The third molars are the most positive means of identifying the browns and differentiating them from other bears. large brown may reach 9 feet from the tip of his nose to the end of his short tail. Compared to man, his girth is tremendous. Color-coded neck collars have recently been introduced to provide a visual means of identification without recapture. This minimizes harassment of the bears and increases possible observation time. A quick portrait, and the animal is left to peacefully sleep it off. The McNeil River has already been designated a bear refuge. A great deal of scientific inquiry is centered around here, where the bears are sure to be found. With the identifying tags, life histories of individual bears can be chronicled and studied. The results will prove invaluable in future game management. There are many questions which must be answered. The minimum weaning age and breeding age are still unknown. The maximum age of the animals in the wilds must be ascertained. Mortality factors affecting wild bear populations are still unidentified. Their actual growth rate and population composition must be established. Along these river banks, many facets of the bear's behavior have been studied, and pieces of the puzzle of the bear's life are starting to fall into place. This just isn't this bear's lucky day. He decides to try another technique for grabbing a fish. Finally, a salmon. Well, half a salmon, and it's better than none. The bears will continue to compete for the best fish for a few weeks to come. By then, the berries they love will have ripened, and they'll desert the rivers for the berry bushes. When the days grow short and winter puts a bite in the air, they'll retire to cozy leaf-lined dens. 6 months later, they'll rouse themselves and emerge, ready to head back for another summer of fishing.
I've always been fascinated by the antics of the brown bears. Some have some very unusual traits. They babysit. One group of females was observed for an entire summer each day trading cubs. What is not known is how they finally straightened out the confusion. I'd certainly like to know. Now remember that the Alaskan brown bear is a wild and ferocious creature, even if he does remind you of a giant teddy bear. Speaking of teddy bears, I want you to meet Pooh Bear. He's a resident of the Wild Animal Training Center. Before we go any further, I have to tell you that Pooh Bear is not an Alaskan brown bear, but a close relative, an American black bear. Although he's brown, don't get confused because black bears can either be black or brown. On the other hand, the Alaskan brown bears can also be brown or black. Are you confused? Well, Pooh Bear is now 10 years old, stands a little over 5 feet tall, weighs about 500 pounds. For a little guy, he's quite a bundle of energy. Like all bears, Pooh Bear is always good for a laugh. Bears are real hands. If you've ever been to the circus or zoo, you know what I mean. People have always had a fascination for bears. We've trained them to ride bicycles, roller skate, dance, and we've immortalized them in the form of the teddy bear. They have an insatiable craving for sweets and will do just about anything to satisfy that craving. You remember Winnie the Pooh? No matter how many times he got stung by the honeybees, he'd still go back up that tall tree for more. Well, after all this sweet talk, I think Pooh Bear deserves a little treat. While he's busy with his snack there, let's try our hand at Animal Quiz. Here's the first question. Bears are avid fishermen, but they definitely have a favorite fish. Which is it? Salmon? Or a nice cod? Or fresh trout? Well, you're absolutely correct if you answered A, salmon. While bears will eat other fish, when the salmon are running, it's the only feast they want. Now let's try a question about their method of fishing. When we go fishing, we take a pole or a rod. Bears, on the other hand, take only their own standard equipment like paws and jaws. What is their favorite method of fishing? Is it diving, angling, or stealing? Or all of the above? Well, that was sort of a tricky question, but if you answered all of the above, you're correct. Bears choose the method that happens to strike their fancy at any particular moment. How are you doing so far? Now here's a question about territory. Alaska is made up of icy, windswept areas, places of deep snow and rocky hills. The bears live in only one area of Alaska. What is it called? Is it called glacier, polar cap, or tundra? The correct answer is tundra. And if you travel further north, the only bear you'd see is the polar bear. How are you doing with your bear quiz? There are a lot of things to remember about bears, and we're not even finished yet. Now here's your next question. Each winter, the brown bears retire to their cozy dens. How long do they stay? Is it 5 months? 6 months? 7 months? Well, the correct answer is B. Each year, the brown bears hibernate for 6 months. When spring arrives, they emerge ravenous. After all, they haven't eaten since fall, and I'm hungry after only 6 hours. If you've answered all the questions correctly so far, good for you. Keep trying. Here's your next one. After the salmon have completed their yearly run, the bears desert the rivers to indulge an ever-present sweet tooth. What sweet do they seek? Is it honey, berries, or apples? Well, the correct answer is B, berries. By the time the salmon are gone, the wild berries have ripened. I hope you enjoyed our program and had fun playing Animal Quiz. The brown bears of Alaska are pretty amazing. Join us next time when we'll meet more remarkable creatures in the new animal world. And remember, be kind to animals. It's good for everybody. A lot of countries have built monuments to their national heroes. Most of them were dedicated to important people like presidents and generals and maybe even saints. But New Zealand has a monument that's a bit different because it's dedicated to an animal. Do you know what animal that is? It's a dog, a creature most people take for granted. Not the New Zealanders, though, for in this beautiful green country, they raise sheep by the millions, and it wouldn't be possible without the help of the sheepdog. The New Zealand sheepdogs are very special members of the animal world. They're not thoroughbreds, but they're smart, tough, and very hard workers. When you come right down to it, the welfare of the whole nation rests on these dogs because most of the national income is derived from the sheep industry. Take a look at the shore of Lake Tekapo. There are thousands of bleating, woolly creatures and just a couple of shepherds. There's only one reason they can handle these huge flocks. They're dogs. So stay with us as we pay tribute to the sheepdog, a member of the animal world who is the pride of a nation. Later in the program, we'll have some fun playing Animal Quiz and meet some special guests.
There are more sheep in New Zealand than a man could dream of, enough to cure any case of insomnia. These sheep, over 57 million, outnumber the human population by 20 to 1. In pioneer days, they belonged to several huge groups. Today, there are 8,000 farmers with flocks of 1,000 head or more. Amidst this immense population in this rugged and beautiful land, there is one animal, and only one animal, who speaks, or maybe I should say barks, their language. Now, the owner is the boss, the commander-in-chief of the flock. The shepherd is the captain, but the sheepdog, marking his orders with firmness and authority, he's the sergeant of this outfit. He's the one who does all the groundwork. He is the one who the sheep listen to and respect. He's their link with the human world. And in the long run, he's the one who'll save their lives and lead them through this mountainous and demanding terrain. Who are these dogs? Why were they chosen to lead the flocks? What makes them so special and so suited to this difficult task? Well, we've come here to find out. Our first stop is at a small ranch just outside the town of Te Kuiti on the North Island of New Zealand. Incidentally, even without spotting an animal, you can always tell you're in sheep country by the wool they leave on the wire fences. We're about to meet the most famous dog trainer in all New Zealand. His name is Les Knight. Les is in his late 40s now. At one time, he had his own ranch and his own flock, numbering several thousand head. They were his primary interest, so he knows the sheep business. When he went into semi-retirement, he started to study, to take care of dogs as sort of a hobby. He entered a few dog shows, or trials as they're called, won them, and he's been at it ever since. When Les talks about dogs, everybody listens. These animals are not trained the same way a house pet is. Tell them to sit up or roll over or play dead, they'll look at you like you're speaking some kind of a strange language. But whistle. Whistle at one of these sensitive, intelligent creatures as Les Knight does. And then you'll see something. you'll see the kind of obedience and response that would make you proud to own any one of these fine dogs. Now, most of them are border collies, which have been interbred with just about every kind of canine imaginable. As for their specific duties, they're divided into 3 classes: the huntaways, the backers, and the strong-eyed dogs. They're all trained to respond to whistles, indicating various movements from side to side, back and forth, in a circle, and so on. Gentleness and patience are what it takes. This is the only way to gain the loyalty and affection of a good sheepdog. Once this comradeship between man and dog is attained, these animals are capable of some of the most incredible feats in the animal world. Trainer Les Knight has done all he can. The time has come for one of his prize pupils to prove himself. Out there, somewhere among the green rolling hills of New Zealand, there's a mother sheep, a ewe who's given birth to a new baby lamb. The time has come for the family physician, namely the sheep farmer, to make a periodic inspection. The difference in this case is that the patient won't come in of her own free will. It takes, shall we say, a little coercion and a lot of training on the part of a certain canine. Single-handed, with only the whistle to guide and direct him, he must first track and chase his patient and her offspring. He stalks, but most of the time he stares. There's more to this than meets the eye. In fact, that's what they call these smaller sheepdogs, the strong-eyed ones. The name derives from the way in which they ultimately control every movement of their sheep. It's quite a show. It's the talk of the animal world. A strong-eyed dog concentrates on only one sheep at a time rather than a whole flock. With the aid of his master, he pursues his quarry with a tenacity that one has to experience to fully appreciate. And then, much like a snake, he actually stares his prey into submission. The baby lamb is indeed an innocent bystander, not knowing which way to turn or what to do. They claim that this method of domination is a primitive form of animal hypnotism. A few loud barks and harmless bites are added just to remind the patient who's the boss. Once the ewe is within striking range, Trainer Knight gives a hand. While this struggle is going on, you really can't blame our poor little lamb for looking around and seeking help from anyone who might step up and defend his mama. I know the tiny lamb will have difficulty in understanding this, and surely Mama will never understand it. But they're actually going through this complete inspection for their own good and future welfare. And with the future in mind, here's one of the newest ideas that's being introduced into the art of training sheepdogs. An electronic collar, which has an antenna attached to it. Sometimes this may make a dog look more like a strange creature from Mars than man's best friend. The important thing is not the looks, but the effect. Especially on the larger ranches where a dog may wander completely out of sight, the gadget may be of great value. When Les presses a button on the transmitter, it produces a harmless buzz to which the dog immediately reacts. First at short range, less whistles, and simultaneously pushes the button. His responsive pupil soon learns to associate one signal with the other. Even when Les gets out of sight or out of hearing range, he can still communicate effectively with his canine companion, a 20th century wrinkle in the art of dog training. The Maori, proud descendants of the Polynesian canoemen who first settled on the islands of New Zealand, are well represented in sheep farming. These wide open, rich grasslands are the finest in the world for grazing. Here, against the high sky, the mobs of sheep, as they're called in New Zealand, are allowed to run free until shearing time. They are protected only by a shepherd or two and a handful of dogs. Strangely enough, a sheep's biggest enemy is often himself. If he should lose his footing and land on his back, the weight of his own wool makes it impossible for him to get up again. Shepherds have often discovered too late the remains of strays who perished this way. Now, if our barking friend had been around, it wouldn't have happened. Here's a perfect example of what we mean. Trapped like a giant turtle in a woolly shell, this poor ewe is unable to regain her footing. But not for long. Not as long as her old sergeant is around. He pushes, he pulls, he pleads, and he tears. He creates every kind of annoying havoc in order to achieve a single purpose: get that poor critter back on her feet and give her a chance to live again. In this land of many sheep, the Maori have been acting as shepherds for as long as anyone can remember. It was the ancient Maori who actually brought the first dogs to New Zealand. The Europeans brought the sheep, and a strange word used to summon dogs and sheep: Welago. Taking care of thousands of head of sheep at a time requires a certain breed of man and animal. The Maori is a strong, patient shepherd who seems well suited to the task. He knows the fertile land. He knows loneliness, too. Out on the range, his sheep and his dogs are his sole companions. Right now, this shepherd, Jock, is leading this flock into the stockade, where they'll be assembled for the shipment. This is where the third kind of sheepdog that I mentioned goes into action. He's called a backing dog, because, incredible as it may sound, that's exactly what he's trained to do: walk on the backs of a solid mass of hemmed-in sheep. His job also is the essence of Welago: keep 'em moving. Without the backing dog, many of these sheep never would have made it through the narrow gate. As much as any man, the shepherd knows how narrow the dividing line really is between life and death, and between a man and the animals he loves. We've come to New Zealand on this episode of Animal World in order to see the sheepdog in his natural environment, where a man or an animal can breathe with ease and look with pleasure at the panorama of color which surrounds him, with flowers so bright, lakes so blue, and mountains so pure white. This is truly one of the remaining garden spots of our globe. In the shadows of the Southern Alps, they have a flower called the Mount Cook lily. This area is also the ultimate destination and pasture grounds that a sheep rancher named Bruce Scott is heading for. There are bunkhouses for the shepherds and their helpers at the end of the long trail. All told, Rancher Scott has a spread, quite a spread, totaling 64,000 acres. Moving 5,000 head over those acres would be impossible without his sheepdogs, who respond immediately to the summoning cry of,
"Where'll he go?"
The origin of the familiar sheep call is somewhat clouded. Some say it comes from the Gaelic language spoken by many of the early settlers. Whatever the derivation, the end result is the same. For whatever his master wishes, the sheepdog will do. It's really not work for him. It's more like a game with a single magic word.
"Where'll he go? Where'll he go?"
These dogs not only have amazing endurance and intelligence, they have the heart and the spirit of great athletes. They will run of their own free will until their feet are red and raw. If they get too sore, they'll just hole up and rest for a day or two until they're ready to rejoin the pack. On this particular trek, Mr. Scott has brought along 2 young men, both of whom are students, who someday want to be shepherds and sheep ranchers themselves. It's no idle profession in New Zealand. It's big business, the largest in the country, and of tremendous importance to the world market. The heart of the sheep industry is right here in Mackenzie County, where this particular drive is going on. The county itself was named, oddly enough, after a man, James Mackenzie, who stole sheep. Now, a sheep thief in New Zealand is just as notorious as a horse thief back in the old days of the West. It wasn't what Mackenzie did that aroused such admiration, but rather the way in which he stole whole flocks at a single crack. Mackenzie was a genius with dogs. While dining with an unsuspecting farmer, he would have his well-trained hounds take off at a given signal with 100 sheep or more in absolute silence. Mackenzie got caught eventually, but his talent with dogs was so great, and the people of this land have such unbounding love and respect for sheepdogs and the men who train them, that they paid a lasting tribute to his memory. They named it Mackenzie County. Just in case anyone might think some of these animals have a fairly easy time of it, try negotiating this narrow mountain trail sometime from a dog's or a sheep's point of view. The sheep drives in Mackenzie County are long and rugged. For this reason, the hunt-away dogs that are used are trained for stamina. Each one does the work of a dozen men as they head for new pasture land in this wide open country. Now that we've seen the New Zealand sheepdogs in action, we can begin to appreciate why they're so revered by the citizens of this country. Until now, this special breed of dog, really a mixture of many breeds, has been more or less unsung compared to other canines throughout the world and throughout the pages of history. Most of us are familiar with the facts and legends surrounding the heroic huskies of the North Country, the massive St. Bernards of the Alps, even the daring deeds of movie dogs. And each one has rightfully earned his individual claim to fame. It seems to us, though, that the sheepdog of New Zealand, whether he be hunt-away, strong-eyed, or backing hound, may very well be the noblest of them all. For he enters the fray with no particular credentials, no great size or speed or superior wit. The sheepdog has risen strictly from common stock. He's corralled all his strength, cunning, and resources to serve himself as well as others. In his own animal world, then, the New Zealand sheepdog has fulfilled his destiny. He has given a very special meaning to his place on the good earth.
Throughout history, since man first began to domesticate animals, there have been herders. There are the herders of goats, cattle, llama, reindeer, camels, buffalo, and yes, even turkeys. But there is reason to believe that the sheep herder or shepherd was the first. History has recorded some famous shepherds, from the biblical Israelites to the Basques of Spain to the Navajos of the New World. Today, the shepherds of New Zealand personify the traditional qualities of shepherds through the ages. Their dogs are their tireless helpmates and friends. Now, this is Ruby. Hello, Ruby. She's a working sheepdog, and believe me, she earns her keep every day. Now, she's going to demonstrate some special skills for us with this small flock of sheep behind me. Okay, Ruby, go by. Go by, Ruby. Go by, Ruby. Atta girl. Well, Ruby's doing pretty good, don't you think? Why don't you put on your wool thinking caps and play Animal Quiz? Remember, it's just for fun. Now, New Zealand has a total population less than the city of Chicago, but boy, do they have sheep. Many more than they have people. Do you remember the ratio of sheep to people? Is it 2 to 1, 10 to 1, or 20 to 1? Well, the answer is C, 20 to 1. That amounts to over 57 million sheep. Boy, I wouldn't want to have to count all of those to get to sleep. It would take me a week to handle that vast number of sheep. These dogs have to be very well trained. They don't respond to word commands, but to something else. What is it? A string on a stick, or a whistle, or a pitch pipe? Well, of course, the answer is B, a whistle. By using whistle signals, the master can control his dog's movements to control the sheep. New Zealand sheepdogs are mostly border collies brought from the Scottish and English borderlands. They are separated into 3 classes according to their specific duties. Dogs in one of the 3 groups are called backers. What do? Take sheep back to their pens, gather strays in the back of the flock, or walk on the backs of sheep? Well, the answer is C. Amazingly, they walk on the backs of sheep and keep them moving through the narrow gates of the shipping pen. How are you doing with your Animal Quiz questions? We've got some more coming up, so don't give up yet. James Mackenzie was well known by the sheepmen of South Island. Why? He was a sheep thief. He was a genius at training dogs. A county was named for him. Or all of the above. Did you answer D, all of the above? You're right. Now, sheep stealers aren't usually very popular, but people so admired how well his dogs were trained to steal sheep that they immortalized him. Now try this sheep question. A sheep's biggest enemy is often himself. If one should lose his footing and land on his back, it will stay there until help arrives or it dies. Is that true or false? The answer is true. The weight of the sheep's wool makes it impossible for him to get up by himself. The dogs are specially trained to nag a downed sheep to help it regain its feet. Now let's go back to those 3 classes of sheepdogs. We already looked at the backers, so let's talk about the strong-eyed dogs. They can control every movement of an individual sheep. How? By sitting on it? By grabbing an ear in its teeth? or by staring it into submission? Well, the answer is C, by staring it into submission. He'll throw in a couple of barks and harmless bites for good measure as well. Did you have fun playing Animal Quiz? It's always fun for me. And it was a delight to watch the sheepdogs work. Now you know why the people of New Zealand built their monument. They're grateful to the animal that helps give them their livelihood. And on the South Island, man has taken the trouble to show his appreciation. Let me read the inscription for you. This monument was erected by the run holders of Mackenzie County and those who appreciate the value of the collie dog, without the help of which the grazing of this mountain country would be impossible. And at the bottom in Gaelic, blessings to you, dear hound of the sheep. Well, this is Bill Burrid reminding you, be kind to animals. It's good for everybody.